All right, friends, pop the popcorn because tempers flared and chaos reigned at a meeting of the Senate Judiciary Committee today. For the first time in a long time, Senate Democrats pulled a Mitch McConnell, using their majority to bully the bad faith Republican minority. Democrats rammed through two of President Biden's judicial nominees and voted to issue subpoenas to two shady conservative billionaires tied to recent reports of Supreme Court corruption. And the GOP was big mad. But before we unpack all that, if you haven't yet, please hit that like, subscribe, and the alert bell. All right, folks, we have several clips to play. I'm excited about this. I'm just going to warn you that the bliss, the sheer endorphin rush that you will get from witnessing the schadenfreude, seeing the rage and despair of Republicans who are now up against, for a brief moment, Democrats who will occasionally flex their power like Republicans do all the time. It's just exquisite. So let's play some of these clips and we'll unpack them together.
The nomination will be favorably reported to the floor. Up next is Judge Yumi Lee, nominated to the U.S. District Court for the...
Mr. Chairman, who has not been allowed to speak on that nomination?
Mr. Chairman, you just destroyed one of the most important committees in the United States Senate.
Chair would note,
and you set a precedent which will be repeated every time one party or the other takes advantage and takes the low road. It sets a precedent that will then become the norm. Congratulations on destroying the United States Senate Judiciary Committee.
Up next.
So that was Lindsey Graham and John Cornyn, two Republican senators, complaining that Dick Durbin and the Democrats violating a norm is going to destroy the Senate Judiciary Committee. Never mind the fact that Senate Republicans violate norms all the time when they're in the majority on the Senate Judiciary Committee. It was how they were able to pass or confirm so many of Donald Trump's Supreme Court nominees. It's okay when they do it, apparently, but if Democrats, even for just a little bit, start to give them a taste of their own medicine, they can't handle it. Here's Republican Senator John Kennedy complaining in a different way, in a different tone, about the same thing, being very dramatic.
And I confess, I don't understand why you're taking us down this road. I don't. And the final point I guess I would make is that I asked you this question last time, and I think if where you're headed with this is to ultimately subpoena Justice Thomas or another member of the Supreme Court, I think that would be a huge mistake. But if that's where we're going to go with this, I respectfully suggest you go ahead and do it and let us meet it head on.
What a whiner. I mean, the dramatics there. They're not trying to subpoena Clarence Thomas or Samuel Alito. They are trying to subpoena two shady conservative billionaires after spending months and months and months trying to negotiate with them in good faith to provide testimony about credible reports of Supreme Court corruption that involved them. It's very different. Here's another clip of this one is many Republicans complaining about Dick Durbin proceeding to vote on these two judicial appointments by President Biden.
The clerk will call the roll.
Mr. Chairman, are we going to have an opportunity to speak on the nominees?
Yes, we're going to. Oh, I'm sorry. We already had done that at great length.
Well, I think this deserves some commentary, given the nature of the nominee, and I'd like to ask to speak on the nomination.
Senator, we've debated these two nominees twice.
Mr. Chairman, I would also like to speak on the nomination.
I understand what you'd like to do, but I'm saying that in fairness, we have debated these nominees twice, and I ask the clerk to call the roll.
Mr. Chairman, you're denying us an opportunity to speak on a nominee?
I mean,
third time, no.
Okay, do this.
So we don't have a right to speak under the rules?
Under the third time, I'd say no.
So you're just going to make it up?
So yeah.
I'd like to
There's going to be a lot of consequences coming here.
I'd like to speak to Mr.
You're going to have a lot of consequences coming if you go down this road.
So you have Tom Cotton there, a Republican who has repeatedly threatened the Senate Democrats. You're going to have consequences. You're going to have consequences. You have Marsha Blackburn. You have Lindsey Graham. You have John Cornyn. You have John Kennedy, all complaining that Senate Democrats are, for a brief moment in time, wielding power the way that Senate Republicans always do when they're in the majority. And then this is the big one. This is pertains to, again, the issuance of those subpoenas to Harlan Crow and Leonard Leo, two conservative billionaires tied to the recent ethics scandal and allegations of corruption involving Supreme Court Justices Clarence Thomas and Samuel Alito.
Time as my chairmanship, The Republicans have invoked the 2-hour rule as they did on the Vanita Gupta nomination, which means that we literally have until 12 o'clock to complete our
No,
business.
we have next week, and we have the week after that, and we have the week after that. What is the urgency here?
We will
Give me a
therefore-
break. You got a bill on the floor.
Senator Graham, would you
Wait,
yield to a question?
Please let me finish.
The chair has the floor.
So again, basically at the time, Republicans were using every stalling tactic known to man to try to thwart the issuance of these subpoenas. And so Dick Durbin says, okay, well, if we have to get all this business done in 2 hours, which is the obstruction effort that Republicans imposed, that they basically said you have 2 hours to get all the business done and good luck. Dick Durbin's like, okay, we'll run the clock out. We'll get as much done as we possibly can. And that's why Lindsey Graham's like, whoa, why can't we just wait till tomorrow and the next week and the week after? And it didn't work. Now, before we unpack the remaining aspects of the subpoenas in question, I just want to remind you, when it comes to the violation of norms, Senate Republicans do it all the time in the pursuit of power. Now, they may not do it recklessly. Mitch McConnell's a bit strategic. But when it comes to achieving an objective, Senate Republicans have never allowed norms or convention to stand in their way. If they see an opportunity, for example, to pack the Supreme Court with 3 conservative justices, they won't let a little thing like, a 60-vote qualified majority get in their way. They'll change the rules. They'll invoke the nuclear option and make it pass with a simple majority. One of the other things that they did was called the blue slip. Okay. So a blue slip is basically like an informal veto. Every senator used to have one when it comes to judges, district court and circuit court judges. Basically, if a president, nominated a judge in a senator's home state, and the senators didn't like that judge, they could say, no, pick a different one. That's the blue slip. We give you the blue slip, and if the blue slip says we don't like them, pick another one. It was basically a convention that was respected, right? And it allowed those senators to have power, negotiating power with the president and whoever the majority was over who would fill that vacancy in their state. When Donald Trump came into office, Republicans eliminated the blue slip veto for a certain type of judge, and they were able to just cram through whoever the hell they wanted with a simple majority, okay? Then, when Senate Democrats took power back under President Biden, Republicans were really upset that the Democrats didn't restore the blue slip. They were like, wait, that rule that we took away to cram through every judge that we had, why are you keeping, why aren't you putting that back? Why are you now using the lack of rule that we created to do what we did to you? And this was Sheldon Whitehouse, basically putting his foot down at the time and commenting on the issue.
So I think the damage that was done to this institution by the decision to remove the blue slip, the institution of this committee, by the decision to end the blue slip was very real. And now your side is feeling the pain of it that we have felt for the past administration. And all I can say is I would like to find a solution to it, but I'll tell you what the solution is not. The solution is not that when there's a Republican president, there are no blue slips for circuit court judges. And then when there's a Democrat president, suddenly there are blue slips again.
And that's exactly what Republicans wanted. They wanted to be able to bend, twist, remove, add rules for their convenience, and then Democrats go back to the opposite way so that no matter what, Republicans were advantaged. And I'm proud of the Democrats not going back to that rule, saying, listen, you changed the rules for your benefit, so we're going to take advantage of it too. The last thing I'll say on the blue slip thing is, so that was for circuit court judges. Now, Senate Democrats at any time could have done the same thing with district court judges. And a lot of people were saying, no, don't do that. That's abusing the norms. But here's the thing. Republicans will do it. Republicans will absolutely revoke the blue slip rule as soon as it's convenient. They did it for circuit court judges because that's all they needed to do at the time. But if a blue slip is standing in the way from a Republican president, ramming through a particular judge that they want, they will absolutely abolish that rule. And the fact that Senate Democrats didn't, the fact that Senate Democrats have maintained the blue slip for district court judges is one of the reasons why Judge Aileen Cannon is presiding over the Trump classified documents case. She was a Trump-appointed district judge in Florida. And because there are so many vacancies, district court vacancies in Florida, because the Republican senators of Florida are blocking President Biden's nominees, that meant that there were fewer district court judges to have. So when the case had to be assigned, it increased the probability significantly that it would wind up in front of a Trump-appointed judge. So this is my message. Senate Democrats have got to learn to fight ruthlessly. This is a little taste of that. This is so good. I'm very happy about it. Now, with that in mind, the subpoenas passed the committee, okay? Now, the two billionaires in question, Harlan Crow and Leonard Leo, have indicated that they do not intend to comply. In a statement, Crow's office echoed the GOP's argument that the subpoenas are invalid. Despite the unenforceability of the subpoena, Mr. Crow remains willing to engage with the committee in good faith, just as he has consistently done throughout the process. That's absolutely not the case. He didn't do that. Leonard Leo said, Senate Judiciary Committee Democrats have been destroying the Supreme Court. Now they are destroying the Senate. I will not cooperate with this unlawful campaign of political retribution. So you might be thinking, okay, what does that mean? What can Senate Democrats do? Well, they have a couple of options to enforce the subpoena, and I'll allow Sheldon Whitehouse, again, the guy we just referred to explain.
Senator, you just mentioned a moment ago that there are a number of options available to the committee if Harlan Crow and Leonard Leo do not comply with the subpoena. Could you enumerate one, two, or three of them?
Well, one is to go directly to the floor and seek a decision from the floor ordering enforcement. If we do that, it likely runs into the 60-vote cloture problem. And the Republicans have, not surprisingly, rallied around the big Republican donor billionaires who are behind the gift scheme and so much else. So that's a hard way to go. But it's worth having the fight, and it's worth exposing their arguments to the light of day. There are other ways that include the prospect of, for instance, the Department of Justice moving to enforce the subpoena on its own.
So if Republicans, now that the two witnesses in question have said that they will not comply with the subpoenas, that means it would probably need to go to a floor vote. Republicans are not going to give the Democrats the roughly 10 votes they need to enforce the subpoena. But we still have the White House. We still have the Justice Department. So hopefully Senate Democrats will refer the subpoenas to the Justice Department, and then the Justice Department will go with handcuffs and force Leonard Leo and Harlan Crow to testify and comply with the subpoena before Senate Democrats. So this is big. There's a reason that Senate Republicans are so outraged about this, because this is at least a step in the direction of accountability for a rogue, hyper-conservative Supreme Court. Now, we do have checks and balances and separations of powers, but that's the thing. Republicans are focused more on separation of powers right now because the Supreme Court does their bidding, so they don't want checks and balances. They don't want the other two branches, the executive branch and Congress, to intrude on a court that's doing their bidding. But the thing is, as we've mentioned in previous videos, the Supreme Court is not the pinnacle of government. It's not three branches where the Supreme Court's on top. These are 9 unelected figures who serve lifetime appointments. Now, a lot of conservatives venerate the Founding Fathers. The Founding Fathers did not intend to leave one monarch, King George III, just to create 9 more, right? The Supreme Court is as susceptible to checks and balances as any of the other branches. And Congress, which is supposed to be the first branch among equals, absolutely has the right and the duty to check the Supreme Court. So their arguments are completely invalid. Their arguments are completely antithetical to the Constitution. And with respect to the politics involved, it's really good that Senate Democrats are, for a brief moment, flexing their muscle. They should be thoughtful about it. They should be considerate. They should be, I'm not saying do it with reckless abandon, but this idea that we shouldn't flex our muscle because it will provoke Senate Republicans to do the same when they take the majority, that's a hollow threat. Senate Republicans aren't obligated to wait for us to do something for them to do it. They can flex their muscle at any time, unprovoked, and have done so in the past. So good on Dick Durbin, good on Sheldon Whitehouse for the first time in a long time, doing something that probably in a roundabout way would make Mitch McConnell proud. Let me know what you think in the comments.